Hey everyone! So we've been diving deep into the crypto markets these past few days, and honestly, it's been wild. That massive sell-off really shook things up, and the big question on everyone's mind is, have we finally hit bottom? Now, we're not just looking at charts here, we're connecting all the dots. The Fed's next moves, those heated tariff talks, the ongoing trade tensions, and even how gold is playing into all of this. It's like a giant puzzle, and I think we're finally starting to see the bigger picture. Here's the thing. I genuinely believe we now have some solid clues about where crypto is heading next. And trust me, there are some big indicators we need to keep our eyes on that could signal major moves. We'll break all of that down in just a minute. But first, let's talk about what's happening right now in the markets. And guess what? We're seeing green across the board today. It's like a breath of fresh air after all that red we've been staring at. Some altcoins are really showing up today. We've got coins pushing 4% gains, with some like HAR almost touching that sweet 5% mark. XLM is sitting pretty at 2.1% up, and we're seeing solid 2.5% gains elsewhere. Now, XRP. I know a lot of you have been watching this one closely. It did jump earlier today, and while 2.8% isn't exactly moon territory, hey, green is green, right? So stick around because we're about to dive into those game-changing indicators that could tell us exactly where this market is headed next. Hey everyone, so here's what's exciting. We're actually seeing some really solid recovery in the crypto market right now. Bitcoin just climbed back over that 111,000 mark, which is awesome to see. Ethereum's also looking strong, sitting comfortably above 4K again. And check this out. XRP is hanging around that sweet $2.50 level we've been watching. But here's what's really catching my attention today. Some of those classic altcoins are starting to wake up and show some serious movement. And honestly, we absolutely love to see this kind of action. Now here's the reality check we need to talk about. When we zoom out to the weekly chart, we're still swimming in a pretty deep ocean of red here, folks. So while today's bounce is definitely nice to see, we're going to need a whole lot more momentum to really turn this ship around. Most of these gains we're seeing right now on the daily time frame are really just giving us a nice little bounce. Think of it like a small bump on the road rather than a major turn. The truth is, we haven't seen that big sweeping reversal we're all waiting for across these altcoins yet. And you know what? That's totally okay. Until we get those stronger signals, we're just going to keep playing it smart and taking things one day at a time. No need to rush. Patience is key in this game, right? But let's talk about XRP for a second. This coin has been absolutely crushing it over the past few days, ever since January 17th. And mark this date because it's important. We saw what looks like a major bottom form on the chart, around that $2.20 level. And look where we are now. We've bounced back above $2.40, and earlier today we actually kissed that $2.50 resistance level. That was a really solid little peak we hit there, and honestly,
So this is exactly what we're looking at on the current chart setup, and it's getting pretty interesting. We're starting to see some bullish divergence forming on the daily time frame, which is always a good sign to watch for. Here's the backstory. We recently hit some seriously oversold levels on this chart, something we've been tracking since way back in July 2024. Remember, we were stuck in this major downtrend for months, but then we got that sweet bounce off the trend line, and now we're keeping our eyes glued to one crucial level. That magic number? The May highs sitting right around $2.60. This is the level we need to see XRP absolutely smash through. Until we get that decisive breakout above $2.60, we've got to stay smart and cautious here, because honestly, we could still see another significant drop. So what are we watching for? It's all about building that bullish structure. We want to see those classic higher lows and higher highs forming. Once that pattern clicks into place, that's our green light signal that XRP is ready to rocket much higher. But hey, we're not putting all our eggs in one basket. We're also keeping tabs on other major markets like gold and the S&P 500. Speaking of which, today was absolutely fantastic for stocks. They're creeping up toward their moving average on the RSI, which is...
this RSI retest is going to be absolutely huge, guys. Let me tell you why. The last time we broke above this level was way back in early September. And what happened next? We went absolutely ballistic and smashed through to a brand new all-time high. And here's where it gets really exciting. We're currently breaking above that September resistance level. Now, if you've been following along, and I know many of you have, you'll remember me talking about this exact scenario. I actually called this out in our Discord community too. I was expecting us to hit some serious resistance right around those September highs from the 22nd and 23rd, that sweet spot around 6,700. And guess what? We tapped it perfectly, but we couldn't close above it on the daily. It acted like a brick wall, just like we thought it might. But here's the key thing I mentioned. The level we really needed to hold was that September low around 6,600. And boom! We not only held it, we closed above it, and now we're smashing through those high resistance levels like they're nothing. Now, here's the cherry on top. The stock market is absolutely on fire right now. We're sitting less than 0.5% away from hitting a brand new all-time high. Stocks are absolutely cooking, and the momentum is incredible. And while all this is happening, we're also keeping a close eye on our favorite, Bitcoin. All right, so we just got some really interesting data from Ted Pillows that's worth breaking down. Here's what's happening. Those short-term Bitcoin holders are basically throwing in the towel right now. They're capitulating, which is actually a pretty big deal. So here's the technical stuff made simple. Bitcoin's SOPR, that's the spent output profit ratio for those keeping track, just dropped below 1. What does that mean in plain English? It means these short-term holders are literally selling their Bitcoin at a loss. Ouch, right? But here's where it gets really interesting, and this is why we pay attention to this stuff. Historically, when SOPR falls below 1, it's actually marked local bottoms for Bitcoin. Like, this has been a pretty reliable signal. Perfect example. Remember back in April this year? We saw this exact same pattern, and it marked the bottom just like we discussed in our trading community. And guess what's happening right now? We're seeing those same levels getting hit again. So while it might look scary on the surface, this could actually be setting us up for something pretty exciting. And here's what makes this timing absolutely fascinating. We're seeing this happen right when stocks are literally knocking on the door of new all-time highs. Meanwhile, most of the crypto market has been getting absolutely hammered down to those oversold levels. I've got to say, I'm totally on board with Ted's analysis here. When you look at all the pieces coming together, the SOPR data, the oversold conditions, the stock market strength, it really feels like we might be staring at that major bottom signal we've all been waiting for. This could be one of those moments where everything starts to click into place, and honestly, all right, let's dive into Bitcoin and what's happening right now. So we just saw a full retracement down to those 70.2 and 78.6 Fibonacci levels. Basically, Bitcoin took a pretty deep dive. But here's the good news. We got a solid bounce off those levels and actually managed to close above them on the daily chart. That's encouraging. Right now, Bitcoin is doing something really important. It's retesting the moving average on the RSI daily level. And here's why this matters. If we can break above this level, like we did back in late September, we could see an absolutely explosive recovery. I'm talking violent moves to the upside. Now, let's talk about the roadmap ahead. We've got our first major checkpoint at 112K. This is the level we need to flip bullish. So far, Bitcoin's been respecting this resistance, and it's also those May highs we've been watching. Once we clear 112,000, our next target is those previous highs at 115.4 thousand that rejected us before. Then we need to reclaim those September levels around 117.2K. But here's the reality check. There's honestly a ton of resistance packed in this whole zone above us. I'd argue we really need to smash through 120,000 to get some breathing room. Until that happens, I'm staying cautious because we could easily see a dead cat bounce or even a lower high that leads to an even lower low. What I'm really hoping for is a clean break above that blue resistance zone on the chart. Look, Bitcoin's got some serious work cut out for it, but once we start reclaiming these key levels, we should get those beautiful bullish signals screaming at us. Hey, Bitcoin has officially bottomed and we're about to go absolutely nuts. Speaking of going nuts, one of the biggest indicators everyone's been watching lately, and I just covered this in a recent video, is gold. Gold has been on an absolute tear recently. Check out what gold's chart looks like right now. We just smashed through $4,350 on the daily chart. Gold is literally breaking into brand new all-time high territory. This is absolutely wild to watch unfold. But here's where we need to pump the brakes for a second. Take a look at that RSI indicator. It's screaming that gold is completely overcooked right now, like seriously overheated. Now, before you start panicking and thinking, oh no, is gold about to crash straight down to $3,000 or below? Hold up. Let me tell you something important about how RSI actually works. Just because the RSI is overheated doesn't mean we're about to see some catastrophic crash. Let me give you a perfect example of this. Remember back in April? We had all that sideways, super boring price action that honestly put everyone to sleep. But guess what that boring movement actually did? It let the RSI cool down and reset itself. And what happened next? BAM. We got this absolutely massive, explosive move to the upside. So sometimes the market just needs to take a breather, you know? That's exactly what we need to see with gold. Just some good old-fashioned, boring sideways action. And that's actually why I threw those bar patterns from way back here onto the chart. This could totally be what we're setting up for right now. This boring consolidation phase, it's actually exactly what we want to see, because historically when gold goes into snooze mode like this, it sets the stage for Bitcoin to absolutely explode to the upside. And here's the psychology behind it. When gold starts moving sideways and gets all boring, investors start getting restless, right? They start looking around for something more exciting to park their money in. They want action. They want those heart-pumping gains that come from assets that are actually moving and shaking. And that brings us to the million-dollar question everyone's been asking lately. Are we about to see a massive money rotation from gold straight into Bitcoin and crypto? Actually, Ash Crypto just dropped a really interesting post about this exact topic. He's predicting that the money rotation from gold to Bitcoin is going to be absolutely massive in the fourth quarter. Pretty bold claim, right? He even said he'll revisit this prediction once Bitcoin breaks through $150,000. Now, look, is this partly just engagement farming? I mean, let's be real here. You could definitely argue that it is. But here's the thing. Even if it is engagement farming, I've got to say, when I'm looking at gold across pretty much every single time frame, the charts are all screaming the same thing. Gold is absolutely fried right now. Like, seriously overcooked. And you know what? This whole setup is giving me major deja vu from back in 2020, where we saw this absolutely massive gold rally that ran from 2019 all the way through 2020. We're talking about that epic run that peaked around July and August of 2020. Here's what's really interesting about that period. Gold was the absolute king, outperforming pretty much everything. Meanwhile, crypto, it was honestly pretty sleepy. Sure, we had that awesome DeFi summer, which was fantastic, but for the most part, crypto was just kind of meh. Nothing too exciting happening. But then, and this is where it gets really good, once gold started getting boring and moving sideways, that's when Bitcoin just went absolutely ballistic. And it wasn't just Bitcoin either. The entire crypto space went completely nuts during this time frame, running all the way into May 2021. Now, if you've been following my videos, and I really hope you have, you'll remember me saying this over and over. Most altcoins actually topped out in May 2021. They didn't keep running all the way to November like a lot of people think they did. But here's the key thing we need to focus on. Throughout this entire crypto bull run, we're talking all the way through November 2021, gold was just sitting there being absolutely boring. It wasn't until around late March 2022 that gold finally started waking up and showing some life. But even then, gold wasn't exactly on fire. Throughout 2022, it just kept chopping around sideways until about November, and then it started climbing again. But here's what's really important to understand. During this whole period, gold was basically just consolidating around those 2021 highs. No major breakouts, no explosive moves, just hanging out. It wasn't until April of last year that we finally saw gold break out in a big way. And here's what's really fascinating about this timing. Is the timing! Guess when crypto hit its local top back in 2024? March 2024. And what happened right after that? Gold completely took over the show. Gold absolutely dominated throughout the entire summer. But then in October, we saw it sell off. And wouldn't you know it, that's exactly when crypto started going absolutely bonkers again. End of October, beginning of November, crypto was back in beast mode. But wait, it gets even better. Gold kept climbing after January, and guess what happened to crypto in January? Yep, another local top. We sold off hard all the way through April, and then, you probably see where this is going, end of April. Well, actually, it was more like mid to late April when gold topped out again. Do you see the pattern here? It's like clockwork. When we're analyzing gold, we basically want to think in reverse. We actually want to see gold get boring and sideways because that's what triggers the big money rotation into crypto. Right now, with gold being completely overcooked like this, I honestly think we're setting up for that massive rotation everyone's been talking about. And here's what makes this timing even more perfect. This is all happening right as the tariff drama is starting to chill out. Just like I've been saying all along, this whole trade war and tariff noise, it's exactly that, just noise. Check this out. We're getting breaking news that the US is actually rolling back tariffs on products that can't be grown, mined, or naturally produced here in America. President Trump has quietly exempted dozens of products from his so-called reciprocal tariffs over the past few weeks. See what I mean? All that fear and panic over tariffs, and now we're already seeing them get rolled back. Let me break down exactly what's happening here. The Trump administration is exempting what they call unproducible imports from these tariffs. We're talking about dozens of imported goods, things like coffee, bananas, and certain minerals. Basically stuff that America just can't produce domestically at the scale we need. This is a pretty big adjustment, especially considering that average US tariff rates had shot up to 27%, the highest we've seen in over a century. That definitely contributed to all the inflation worries and market craziness we've been dealing with. But here's what's really interesting. President Trump defended this policy in a Fox News interview on October 19th, and get this, he actually praised Chinese President Xi Jinping as a smart leader who's open to making a trade deal. They're even planning to meet at the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit in South Korea. So when I step back and look at all this, it just reinforces what I've been saying. This whole tariff drama and trade war discussion has been massively blown out of proportion. I genuinely think most markets got way oversold because everyone was freaking out over what's turning out to be mostly negotiating tactics. Okay, and that's exactly why we're seeing this beautiful bounce happening across the board today. The whole market is finally waking up and realizing that maybe, just maybe, all that panic was overdone. But here's what I'm really watching for. We're still waiting for gold to hit that boring sideways phase. And honestly, I think once gold goes into snooze mode, Bitcoin is going to absolutely explode again. We're talking about clearing those recent highs and pushing straight through to brand new all-time highs. The setup is getting really, really interesting. So I've been getting this question a lot lately, especially over the past week or so. People asking me, is Bitcoin done? Has it topped out? And my answer is a definitive no. I really don't think so. Look, I totally get it. When we're looking at the current structure and dealing with these sell-offs, it can be incredibly frustrating. Maybe even a little stressful if you're holding bags right now. I feel you on that. But here's what's really important when we zoom out and look at Bitcoin's bigger picture. We just hit a low that landed right around those same levels we saw way back in June. So honestly, I'm not stressed about this at all. That low we just hit was from 4 months ago. In the grand scheme of things, this move really isn't anything to lose sleep over. I'm genuinely not worried about it. The only thing that's been bugging me is how painfully boring it's been since that sell-off. We need to see some action, some life in Bitcoin, you know? I'm sitting here waiting for that spark to ignite, but here's some good news. We are starting to see some really nice gains across the board with several altcoins. Sure, a lot of them are just bouncing off their lows, but there are also some altcoins that have been absolutely crushing it during this whole period. Now, since it's Monday, we've got a whole week ahead of us to see how this plays out. Here's exactly what I'm watching for. I want to see stocks push through to new all-time highs. Gold take a nice healthy pullback, like a real pullback, not just a tiny dip. And then I want us to just chop sideways for a couple weeks. That's literally all we need. Once that happens, Bitcoin should break back to new all-time highs, push even higher, and then, boom, we finally get that alt season everyone's been waiting for. Look, I know this sideways action is boring. It absolutely sucks when you're just sitting there watching paint dry. But here's the silver lining. Those tariffs and trade war fears are finally cooling off, which is exactly what we needed to see. And this is all happening right as we're starting to see Bitcoin bounce back to some really important levels on the chart. We're actually reclaiming some key zones, which is super encouraging. We just need to see a little bit more follow-through to really seal the deal. I'm expecting we should get that confirmation over the next couple of days. And by the time our weekly candle closes on Sunday, we'll have enough solid price data to really answer the big questions. Was that the bottom? Are we about to go absolutely nuts to the upside? Or are we still hunting for some lower prices before the real fun begins? Either way, we'll know soon enough. Alright everyone, I hope you got some real value out of today's video. If this analysis helped you out or got you thinking, definitely smash that like button, hit subscribe, and turn those notifications on so you never miss the latest market updates. Also,
Feel free to follow me on